Okay, we're not going to finish tomorrow. We'll finish on see him on Monday this week. Next week. Oh yeah, Sunday. That's right. Sunday evening we have to learn this week.
What?
Yeah, Sunday evening. We'll have to make a time because
we're not going to be
we're no Wednesday or Thursday, so we're ahead a little bit. But yeah. For him, Okay. We're on Chav Gimel and Beis, and we are. Two dots, right? Yeah. The two dots. How many lines down?
4, 7,
10 lines down. Okay. Chatzi kav chitin, chatzi kav sorin. You have half a kav of chitin and half a kav of sorin. Now, half a kav, at the beginning of the parak here, the Levi Yerushalmi said that these measurements are specific, but they're not necessarily specific. They're not germane. What it means is you have half a measure on one side, half a measure of the other side. You have like the barbell shape again. Half a measure of wheat, half a measure of barley. In the middle, the chatzi kav kusmin, you have half a measure of, I want to say spelt. I believe it's spelt in the middle. I think kusmin is spelt. Let me check. I broke it down here. Yes. And half a cup spelt in the middle. Notel mina kusmin, lefi mashein. Now you take from the kusmin the shiur of challah in the entire mixture, because spelt fuses both with wheat and with barley. So you can take from the spelt on both. Kav chitim and kav sorim. If you have a measure of wheat and a measure of barley and a kav kusmin and then a measure of spelt on the other side, so instead of being wheat, spelt, barley, this is wheat, barley, spelt. Now this is talking about we have a full measure of each, right? Full measure of each. You have to take challah from each one separately. Why? Because lo amar, the only time where you have combination, where you combine the three, is el kav chitim. You have a measure of wheat on one side, kav sorin, a measure of barley on the other side, kav kusmin, and a measure of spelt, and here there's a missing word, ba'emtza, in the middle. However, kav chitim, if you have a measure of wheat, of a kav kusmin, and a measure of spelt on either side, and here's a word missing again, and kav sorin by 2 words, kav sorin ba'emtza, and a measure of barley in the middle, lo b'da. In that case, they're not all combined. Now, we're going to ask why. Rabbi Bum Bar Chiam, Rabbi Chanina, Chavrun the Rabbanin, the friends of Rabbi Chanina, Chavrun the Rabbanin, Rabbi Chanina, the friend of the rabbi's boy, he asked, Ma ben kusmin b'emtza, ma ben tzarim b'emtza. What is the difference between whether it's spelt in the middle or barley in the middle? Now, the reason why this question is a very valid question is because previously we had said that any chayev type in the middle is a tziruf. In other words, we're in the barbell configuration. No matter what's in the middle, as long as it's not rice or some other exempt type, it is mitzaref, the two ends. So why here, if the barley is in the middle, does it not join together, fuse the wheat on the one side and spelt on the other side? Rabbi Cohen, B'Shem Rabbon in the Kesarin, Rabbi Cohen, the name of the rabbis of Caesarea, said, Eina kusmin mitzarfim achitim. Kusmin cannot join together with chitim. Why? Mipnei shehu b'mino. I'm sorry. I read that wrong. Sorry. Eina, Rabbi Cohen, B'Shem Rabbon in the Kesarin said, Eina kusmin mitzarfim achitim mipnei shehu b'mino. You have a misunderstanding, says the Gemara. It's not that spelt and wheat are the same. They're not really the same. And rather, elashumedamelo. There's an interesting concept. The form of the dough is similar. I guess barley dough looks significantly different than wheat dough, but spelt dough and wheat dough do look similar in type. Therefore, it depends. Since it's not a similarity in the grain, but similarity in the dough. Therefore, if they're close together, we say that they're mitzdarif. If they're far apart, they're not mitzdarif. Why? Because the similarity in the dough is only manifest if the doughs are immediately adjacent to one another. Okay? That's what he says here. Again, let's see inside elashuma damelo, because it's similar to it. Became a chulachak mimenu if the barley is in the middle and the wheat and spelt are on either side. So then, since it's distant, eino medamelo, it's not similar to it. Okay? So again, where you have barley on one side, wheat on the other side, and spelt in the middle. So the spelt combines with the barley because it really is a form of barley. And it combines with the wheat because it looks like wheat. But where the barley is in the middle and has no connection to the wheat on the one side, and the spelt is on the other side, it's not mitzaref to the wheat because it's dissimilar in type. It's only similar in dough, and they're not connected to each other. If you had wheat on one side, barley on the other side, and wheat on the other side, wheat, barley, wheat, then the barley would be mitzaref the two. Because there I would say that they're the same type of grain, the same grain actually, so therefore as long as the middle is a type which is chayiv, it's mitzaref the two sides of the barbell. But where since wheat and spelt are not the same type, rather similar in dough form, so therefore the dough forms have to be adjacent in order for them to be a tziruf.
I was trying to think something spiritual. Since barley,
yes.
They use for the sota, it's the lower
it's the animal food.
It's the animal food,
yeah.
So you can't be mitzaref.
Yeah, I guess you could say a drush like that. You come up with something good. All right, but not for now. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yonah boy. Rabbi Yonah asked the question, Afli the Meiser Behema. Okay, is this true also about Meiser Behema, this concept, the barbell concept? Now, what does that have to do with Meiser Behema? So we take out the next three words, and we put in, instead of the Kamad, the Tamar Taman, we put in the word Kigon, such as, now this is a halacha that happens to be in the Yom of my manuscript here. There's halacha in Hilchos Eruvin and halacha in Hilchos Bechoros, which are said the same, which is that if you have Meiser Behema and you want to put 10 together, how far apart may the 10 be and still be mitzaref? As far as the eye can see, which Gemara in Bechoros says is 16 mil. A shepherd can see is 16 mil. That happens also to be the size of an eruv, the maximum size of an eruv. That's 16 mil because that's as far as the eye can see. So the question is whether it's 30. The question which really is based on our Gemara is whether it's 16 from the middle to each side or 16 altogether across from one side to the other. But the question our Gemara is going to deal with, let's say you have 5 animals. So let's say you have 5 animals in town number 1. And 5 animals in town number 2, so and they're 16 mil or less apart, so they're mitzaref to Meiser Behema. They're considered all the same, whatever, what are they called? Deer, the same corral for Meiser Behema. Now the Gemara asks a question like this: what's a barbell concept by Meiser Behema? Haylo chamesh chiu b'kfar Chananya. You had 5 which are chayav in Meiser Behema and kfar Chananya. The chamesh chiu, and you had 5 which are chayav in kfar. It's just, this is a typo. It should be usnoi, kfar usnoi, which is 32 mil away. The chamesh ptur b'tziporin, and you had 5 animals which are already meisered. They were already meisered in tzipori, which is in the middle. So you have 5 over here, which are chayav, 5 over here, which are potter, and 5 over there, which are chayav again. Are they mitzaref? Now, obviously, the outer ones are too far from each other, but are they mitzaref via the middle one? So, just like you say over here by Yerushalmi Challah, davar tapuchav dalam rauf, davar shenit lachaloso, and a substance or dough from which the challah is already taken. If it's me'emtza, if it's in the middle, it's still mitzaref the two sides which are chayav, right? So you potter in the middle, potter because they already had challah taken off. It still joins together the two things which are chayav on either side of it. Of ha'chakain, maybe by my spam we still say the same thing. In temaru, and if you ask, Shanyahu challah shu kenoshu, maybe challah is different because it's as if the sides bite each other via the middle strip. What, these 16 mil are not like nashuch? It's also the same idea, perhaps. Okay, this is, says Amar, maybe, just like the thing in the middle is mitzaref, so too here, the animals in the middle are mitzaref. Perhaps, or, on the other hand, matzinu, and here's a very critical thing, matzinu challah mehalocha. Truth is, all these tzirufim, they might be mehalocha. Now, halacha in the Bavli means what? But what does it mean in Yerushalmi? Obviously, the Rabbanan. there's such a thing as challah d'Rabbanan. However, lo matzinu meiser behema eloch. There can't be meiser behema d'Rabbanan. Why can't there be meiser behema d'Rabbanan? Why can't there be? Think for a moment. No, but what? No, so let's hear making the chiv d'Rabbanan. Yeah, why can't you make a chiv of meiser behema d'Rabbanan? Let's say the 10th animal, in this case, where you have 5 over here, 5 over here, and 5 in the middle, and maybe we'll say it's no. Well, it causes the kula and something else, right? You're on the right track, but pretty far away still, because you would bring chulin lazara, because ma'aser behema is a carbon, right? And you can't bring a carbon. There's no such thing as a carbon d'Rabbanan.
Oh, right.
There can only be a carbon d'Oraisa. So therefore, you can't make a ma'aser behema d'Rabbanan. So challah d'Rabbanan, sure, no problem. But ma'aser behema d'Rabbanan, there is no such thing. So therefore, perhaps the cases are not comparable. So from this, we learn something very, very important, which is that all these cases of the barbell cases, where you have the tziluf by something in the middle, it's all d'Rabbanan. It's not d'Oraisas. D'Oraisa, it's not. You have to have them. Or everything in one spot, needed together, this is all d'Rabbanan. This is going back to what we said, that Noshuch is a chibur d'Rabbanan, chibur d'Oraisa. So here we see, at least in this form of the barbells, it's a chibur d'Rabbanan, not a chibur d'Oraisa. Okay? Says the more further. Yotzam Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel said a good thing. Now this is going back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah said if you have, I can tell it to you outside, you don't have to look back really, but the Mishnah said at the beginning, in Halacha Beis, that, which we're learning now, that when you have a kav of chodesh and a kav of yoshon, you have a full measure of last year's crop, which is biting a full measure of this year's crop. So Rabbi Shmuel says you take from the middle from both of them. You take a slice from each one of them in the middle in order to make your challah. Rabbanan forbid you from doing this. Rabbanan say you can't take it all from this mixture. Rather, to each side you add you bite on, so to speak, another similar dough of its type, and you take off from the similar dough. So it says more Yosam Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel said a good thing. Kusmin v'chitin shnei minim. Look, let's draw a parallel. Spelt and wheat are two separate minim. Aidei shumadame lo, but since they're similar in the dough, atomer mitzaref. So you say you can take from one on the other, right? Chodesh v'yoshon. So if you have new and old, lo koshken. It's not a kal v'chomer that you can take from new and the other. They're certainly similar. They're not just similar in that the dough looks the same. They're similar in that they're both the same kind of grain. So therefore, you certainly should be allowed to take from one on the other. Now, it's not really true. It's not 100% comparable. Or rather, I don't know if it's the Gemara is playing a sleight of hand. Well, it's not even the Gemara playing. So maybe it's just me playing a sleight of hand. Let's blame it on me. But what really, the case of Kusmin and Chitin, you really, since they're not really completely similar, or rather they just look similar, you have to take a little bit from each one. You can't really take from one on the other. You have to take from each one. And that's what Rabbi Shmuel also said by Chodesh and Yoshan. You can't really take from one or the other. You have to take from each one. It's just that Rabbi Shmuel holds you can take from the place where they meet and bring it all as one fell swoop of challah and separate it, half from one and half from the other. And the Gemara says that makes sense because by kusmin and chitim, because they are similar to each other, you can also take one fell swoop of challah from where they meet and make it the challah simultaneously on both parts of the batter. So why can't you do it? What's Rabbanan's problem? Why don't Rabbanan allow you to do that? So I'll tell you why. Rabbi Hila, time of the Rabbanan. The reason why Rabbanan allow you to take in one fell swoop challah from both the spelt and wheat together is because kusmin v'chitin shnei minim. Although the doughs are similar, people know that spelt and wheat are two separate minim. People not make the mistake of thinking that one can take trumas u'maisis from one on the other. Chodesh v'yoshen, however, min echodu. They look absolutely similar. They're completely the same, right? Imat oimer kain, if you allow an individual to take from the middle, and it's not apparent that he's taking from both, right? Because it looks like he might be taking from one on both, not from both on each one. If a person is going to make a mistake and say, either he himself or a person who sees him is going to make a mistake, lomar, to think, that one can take trumas maasros mizeh from chodesh and yoshan, and therefore you're not allowed to do it. Again, it's a maris ayin issue, not because of any inherent problem therein. Okay?
You say they're just halachically different because one is yoshan and one is chodesh?
Yeah, but so chitin and kusmin, and then nonetheless, yeah, they are largely different, but not in terms of challah. That's the thing. I want to put,
in terms of challah, you couldn't take challah on last year's.
I don't know if that's mikra din. I think after learning the Gemara in the Mishnah, I said mikra din. I did say mikra din, but now I don't think so because it sounds like it's a gzeira, unless you come to take trumas maasros. In other words, challah, really, there is no difference. It's not a difference by challah. By challah, tak, you can take from one on the other even. Rabbi Shmuel doesn't allow you to do that. He says you have to take from both, but you're allowed to take on one fell swoop. Rabbanan don't let you do that, take in one fell swoop, lest you come to take from trumas and maasros from one to the other. So I actually think the way the Gemara is coming out, that really it's more a problem trumas and maasros because of trumas and maasros, not challah itself is us from one to the other. That was my mistake. Okay, I retract that. Okay, Rabbi Akiva Medamal Perush Lo Nigmar Malachta. Now this is going back again to the Mishnah. There should be a header. With the Kavanoki, there would be a header, as we know. The Rabbi Akiva in our Mishnah says that if you took challah from less than a shiur, but the evidence challah. Rabbanon, if you took challah from less than a shiur, but the evidence not challah. And that led to the interesting thing that Rabbi Akiva said: if you have two things, two less than a shiur, half shiurim, from each of which you took challah, and then you combine the two, and now it's a full shiur, you don't have to take off challah again. Right, because you already took off a valid challah. Whereas Rabbanon, you have to take off challah again because the challah you took off previously was an invalid challah. Okay, that was our Mishnah. Rabbi Akiva Medamel, Rabbi Akiva draws a parallel between half a kav of, meaning half the shiur, the perush lo nigmar malachton, the fruit which is grown a third but hasn't yet been harvested. Right, it hasn't yet been. It hasn't had miruach yet. It hasn't yet had miruach is a better definition. It's between a third and miruach. And the halacha is of arvivish man truma, and the halacha in that case is if it's between a third and miruach, and the smoothing of the pile, of arvivish man truma, if you transgress and took off from them truma, harezu truma, b'diavad it's valid truma, right? Obviously b'diavad it's valid truma because I say that it's already reached the point of chiyuv, right? The point of chiyuv is the third. Rabbanan say that challah on a dough, which is not the full shiur, is like as if it's not yet a third grown. It's premature altogether, and therefore, if you took off challah from it, ain't a challah. It's not challah. That was an initial approach towards understanding Machlokas, Rabbi Akiva and Rabbanan. Chazul they reneged on that, and they returned to say, Einon doimim lo leperos shlo nigmar malachton. It's not comparable to fruit which is not yet miruach, because miruach was done here. What's comparable to miruach here? What is the challah as miruach is to truma? Kneading. You already kneaded it, right? It's not comparable to be prior to miruach because you already kneaded it here, and therefore it's certainly not comparable to grain which is not a third grown. So we toss out that comparison. Ella, rather, it's similar to this. Rabbi Akiva Medamel, or Akiva says it's similar. Lo'emer, to somebody who says, Harezu truma, let this be truma al peiros ha'elu, let this be truma on this fruit, l'chshayit l'shu, when they will be harvested, v'nit l'shu. Now, of course, you cannot take off truma before harvesting, But what if you say, let this become truma on this fruit when it does become harvested? It's not a problem of brera, because you know which fruit you have in mind, right? Brera is only a problem when you're not sure what fruit you wanted to apply it to. Here you know which fruit you want to apply it to. You want it to apply in the future. It's not even necessarily, although one could make the argument it's davar shelo b'olam, but it's not davar shelo b'olam because the fruit is already ripe on the vine. We're not talking about buds. We're talking about when it's ripe on the vine and ready for harvesting. So Rabbi Akiva holds that works. You can't do that. Rabbanim etam l'olom and raise it tfua truma peros ha'elu. Big typo here. Mechubarin, when they're still connected. In other words, since he didn't make a condition like that here. He didn't say when it combines, let it be challah. You want it to be challah now, right? So therefore, it's not a valid form of challah. Havum boy memon. They wanted to say, ma'adam Rabbi Akiva neitel challah mikav. Challah mi'alocha. They want to say that which you take, that which Rabbi Akiva said, that b'di'evin, when you took challah off half a shear, it's challah me'halocha. It's only Rabbanan, or midvar Torah lo. It's not midaraisa. But the Gemara says they quickly reneged on that. Min mad tzninan, since we learned in our Mishnah, Rabbi Akiva poiter v'chachomim mechayvin. Rabbi Akiva says once you joined the two together and made a full shear, you're still potter. Right? You took off on 2 half shears and then you combined together, you took and now you have a whole shear, you're still exempt. The Chacham say you're chayiv at that point. Hadar Marasa comes out the Rabbi Akiva holds afilu midvar Torah. Rabbi Akiva must hold that chal works the right, because even once you get to a full shear, it still is a valid doraisa challah. So it must be that Akiva holds that chal on half a shear b'di'evet works midoraisa. Nimtza chumra, so Rabbi Akiva's chumra that it is right now challah even on half a shear is a kula, becomes a kula. Then when you combine them together, it still retains its exemption. The exemption has achieved. Istani Tana, the son who learned kula chumra, that the kula of Rabbanan is the chumra. It becomes a chumra because later on when you combine together, you have to take off challah once more. But so mandamar, obviously mandamar chumra kula. He says the chumra becomes the kula. That's Rabbi Akiva. Kula chumra. He says the kula becomes the chumra. That's Rabbanan. Okay. I'm sure. I don't know. No letter of any sort. I assume he passed one like Rabbi Akiva, but I don't know if no. I assume he passed like Rabbanan because the Rabbi Akiva mechavirov or mechavirov. Passed like Akiva against a single rabbi, but not against multiple rabbis. So I assume he passed like Rabbanan here. Okay. No godam k'tei chala meisa. Lo humra chalasa. Halacha gimel. A person can take chala from a dough which has not yet ever been chalafied. Let's use that word I made up the other day. Lasos betara. He's going to keep this. This is the salami case. We remember you take a loaf and you set it aside and you keep designating, and whenever you need challah, you designate it on this loaf, right? Why is that? To keep it tahor. You can, in order to continuously be marfish against this challah. Now this is only came by chalas d'mai. By where I'm taking up chalas d'mai, because by d'mai it doesn't have to be minamukaf. I don't have to take off from the same basket. I can take off from a different basket on the questionable dough. Where it's, so to speak, tevel vadai, right, definitely is not yet had challah taken off, so that all chalas be minamukaf. As either the same basket in which it's being kneaded, or the same mixing bowl, whatever the case may be. But here, it can be separate. Now, this works ad shetisrach. I can continue to use this challah I set aside, the loaf I set aside, until it goes bad, until it becomes too fermented to eat. Shechalas d'mai, and why is this permissible? Because chalas d'mai, when he tells me that Torah Tamei can be taken from external sources, which are Torah, on this dough which is Tamei, and can be taken shlomina mukaf. It also does not be taken from the same container. It can be taken from a separate container. Okay? Chav Talmud on base. Starts the Gemara. Ma'at shetisrach. What does it mean until it goes bad? Does it mean until it goes bad and a human being can no longer eat it? Or until a dog can no longer eat it? Which is the stage which we're talking about in our Mishnah, at which point you can no longer take challah of it. use it to take off challah. Nishmina min ado. Let's refer to the following case, which is a case of chametz. If a chametz becomes unsuitable, it becomes so vile that a human being can no longer eat it. Mitame tumas ochlin. So it still is a mitame tumas ochlin because it's still suitable for what? It's still food. It's because it's still suitable for what? For dogs, right. It's still suitable for a dog. However, at that point, sorfin osa betuma. And Erev Pesach, when you come to burn your chametz, you can, even though this is still truma, which is tahor. Okay? I don't know if... yeah. I didn't make it clear. This is talking about where it's chametz truma. It's truma, which is chametz, which no longer edible to human beings, but is edible to dogs. So it still could become tameh. It's still metame to masochin because it started off being ochel adam and now it retains its character as ochel as long until dogs can no longer eat it. However, you no longer have to preserve its tara, and therefore Erev Pesach, when you come to burn your chametz, you can burn it with the tameh chametz. You don't have to burn it with the Torah chametz. Therefore, it says other metame to masochin, but sorvin sabatum one can burn it together with the tameh ones. Now, here comes the critical point. Metame to masochlin. It's metame to masochlin. That's not the kasha. It's hard. This is Yerushalmi. Yerushalmi, very often we cite the beginning of a sentence, and we mean to bring a raya from the end of the sentence. Right? Just with Psukim, we're supposed to do it all the time. So the Yerushalmi brought down previously, metame to masochlin v'sarfin asabetuma. What the Yerushalmi means to bring as the proof is the end of the brisa, sorfin osa betuma. So instead of saying betami tumasochlin, it should say here really betami tumasochlin v'sorfin osa betuma. Vata marta miyechel akelev. You said you can burn it with betuma. You don't have to preserve its tara. If that's the case, how can you possibly assume that you're going to make it into challah? Its kedusha is so profoundly affected that you're allowed to burn it with that which is no longer suitable for human consumption, only suitable for animal consumption. Its kedusha is so profoundly affected that you can burn it betuma at your pleasure, and you don't have to maintain its sanctity. So you're going to say that should still be used to become challah until it becomes unsuitable even for a dog to eat? Not logical. Okay? Perhaps it's a bit confusing. Again, betame tumas oichlin. I'm throwing in the next three words. Betame tumas oichlin v'soivin oisa betuma. And the stress is on the soivin oisa betuma. You can burn this stuff, which is no longer suitable for human consumption, together with tameh, even though it's truma. So and you're saying that it's still suitable to be designated as challah until it becomes unfit for a dog to eat? Come on! If it's something which the tumah and tara status thereof is no longer germane and no longer significant, how can this possibly be something which is suitable to set aside as challah? Challah is holy. Challah requires shmir like truma.
Except this is Erev Pesach. You have to burn it. You have to get rid of it anyway.
But truma Torah, you're not allowed to burn Erev Pesach with chametz. Burn separately. Not with tameh stuff. Not with tameh stuff. That's the thing. We allow you to burn to make it tameh. That's the key. Okay, so it means it doesn't have safeguardedness it doesn't have.
It's being burnt anyway. It still can't be burnt with.
Right, can't be burned with tamei chametz. Yeah, because tamei chametz is going to be metame the truma, and that's forbidden.
But it's burning up.
You're now to be metame truma. It doesn't matter. You can burn it, but you're now to be metame. That's right. So here being metame, it clearly is no longer suitable to become challah. Elam yochel adam. So rather, when is it considered to be so vile that it can no longer be considered to be valid truma? When valid challah, when already a human being can't dance it, can't eat it. Hadamara. This teaches us shetomin mina ra ala yofeh one is allowed to take truma. Our Mishnah tells us one is allowed to take truma from the bad on the good. Now, why is that? Why is that? Because it says until it becomes unsuitable for human being to eat. But until it becomes unsuitable for human being to eat, it gets pretty stale and moldy, right? So even though it's raw already, right, it still could be taken as truma or challah on the yafe, right? Until such time as it's no longer suitable for human consumption at all. Vasya Kai, in this going life, the Mara Rav Shmuel, that which Rav Shmuel said, the Mara Rav Shmuel bar Rav Nachman, the Rav Shmuel Rav Nachman said, B'Shem Rabbi Yonasan, Ne Rabbi Yonasan, Shetomi Me'ali Istifnine. I don't know what Istifnine are. The Lev Yerushalmi, it's not like the Kavanok. He doesn't tell us what the various different types of vegetables are. It's the Istifnine plant. So you can take truma from the leaves of the istifnine plant, al istifnine, on the istifnine. Even though the leaves are the raw, they're edible, but they're not so great. Vis-a-vis the vegetable, which is good, so as long as the place where they do eat the leaves, it's valid truma on the plant. Okay? Gamliel Zuga, like Gamliel Zuga, that was his name. Gamliel Zuga Inshe, he forgot mitakna istafninisa. He forgot to fix his istafninas, to take trumas and maisis off it, and sorry about the mai. So as a show Rabbi Yochanan, he came as Rabbi Yochanan and he asked him, what should I do? I forgot to take trumas and maisis off. Amalei, so he said, Istamon Kniva, do you have the leaves you snipped off from the istafnina, the ala istafnina? If you do, afish min kanufta, you can still take the trumas and off from the snipped off leaves. Why? Again, because you can be marfish truma, as you learned here, minara, from the bad, ala yafe on the good. Okay? So far, so good. Chafeim and Alf.
How do we resolve the question about burning the truma that was spoiled with the tummy?
You may, once it's spoiled from achilas adam. Okay. From that we derive that in our Mishnah you can only take off challah, you can only set something aside as challah as long as it's suitable achilas adam. Granted, even if it's moldy and stale, but not past that. Okay? Says Tani. Chafem Rav again. Tani, Trumas Meiser Shel Demai. We have Trumas Meiser Shel Demai. This is a little bit missing here. There's a brisa which says that Trumas Meiser of Demai is taken off from Tor and Tomei. Okay, just like Challah, in our Mishnah we said by Challah, you can take, when it's Demai, you can take from Torah and Tomei. You don't have to take from the same container. You can take from Torah elsewhere on this Tomei. So too, by Trumas Meiser Shel Demai, you can take it from Torah elsewhere on Tomei over here. Ischamei. Ischamei means, of course, in the Yerushalmi talk, Toshma. Toshma means come here. Ischamei means come and see. Same idea. Ischamei. Trumas Meiser Shel Vadai is another brisa. I think it's a brisa. Maybe it's a statement of Amoraim. But we learned Trumas Meiser Shel Vadai. Trumas why are you telling me just Trumas Meiser of the Mai? We learned even Trumas Meiser Shel Vadai. They tell us Mina Torah Tomei. Trumas Meiser of definite Tevel is taken from Torah and Tomei. It does not have to be Mina Mukaf. So certainly Trumas Meiser Shel Demai Lo Koshkein. Is it not certainly true by Trumas Meiser Shel Demai? Now the truth is that brisa which says you can take Trumas Meiser Vadai from Torah and Tomei, meaning not in the same container, that's difficult. That's difficult. Because on anything which is deraisa, you need to have what? Mina Mukaf. And this is Vadai. So the Gemara is going to change around that brisa. We're going to amend the brisa which we just brought as the proof. Rabbi Yisrael says, you know what? That brisa is not talking about Trumas Meiser of Vadai. Of course that we wouldn't allow you to take from Torah and Tomei. That's talking about Safek Truma Gedoyla on a Kayomin. That's talking about a suffix where you have to take off a suffix of truma. Now, what's a suffix of truma? What's a good example of a suffix of truma? It's talking about a case where I guess you forgot. Where you took of truma. Bear in mind, there's no d'mai by truma, because in the old days, Amaratim would take off truma. So it's not the d'mai of truma, but it's a suffix of truma. You regard if you took truma off of this ben mixture or not. So it's talking about suffix truma gedolah on a kayamim. Suffix truma, suffix ivish truma, suffix loif. You should regard if you took off or not. So kemad the tamar. Oh, sorry. Period, and the vishu. That we said in that case we say you take minator latame just like by d'mai, because suffix truma gedolah where you took off or not is similar to d'mai by trumas meiser where you can also take off minator latame. Now, period, new issue. It said in our Mishnah that you're allowed to set off tevel vadai to take off on your d'mai. I'm not expressing myself well. You're allowed to take a dough which is definitely not chalified and set it aside and continuously make it challah on your d'mai doughs. The doughs you're not sure if you took challah off or not. Okay, then one's got a major problem with that. Kamada Tamar minavada el d'mai truma. We learned elsewhere, Masechta d'mai brings down. Masechta d'mai is a well-known case. You'll remember it, where let's say you're taking off trumas d'maisrus from vadai on d'mai, taking from vadai off of d'mai. So the truma we say is valid truma, but you still have to take truma off of the truma on the truma itself. Why is that? Because you took truma from vadai on d'mai. D'mai is only a suffix whether it's chayiv and truma, right? So therefore, it's all. I mean, the rights it's really not. It's a chumra d'rabbanan to be mechayiv. But that truma which you took off from the vadai on the d'mai, it's only a truma d'rabbanan. Midaraisa, what's the status of that truma? It's still tevel. Because when does truma work? When is truma effective? When it's truma from tevel on tevel. If you took truma off of something which is already rectified, 9 o'clock. If you took something which was, he's back, it was the Messiah. If you took truma of something which is already rectified, it's a meaningless gesture, right? Now you're taking truma on something which might have already been rectified. So it's a suffix, whether it's a meaningful gesture, suffix if it's a meaningless gesture. If it's a meaningless gesture, so the truma itself still remains what? Tevel. So you have to take off truma on the truma itself. Okay? So why does it say that in our Mishnah? That's what it's kasha. In our Mishnah we're taking challah from definite tevel on something which is d'mai. So the challah itself has to have challah taken off of it. Why is that not mentioned in our Mishnah? That should be mentioned. It's a glaring omission. Let's see that inside. Kamad the tamer mina vadai d'mai truma. Just like you say when you take off from vadai and d'mai, it's truma. But lo seacheli now not eat it until you take truma sumaisers on the truma itself. It should be v'amar. Now here it should be a big typo. It should be instead of mina d'mai, it should say af hacha. So to here, okay, should be the same thing over here. Well, why does it mention it? It says in my opinion, very weak answer. No offense to you, Yerushalmi Challah, but it's Arishim Varbarsno Kam Beroitzel Ochel Kam Beroitzel Sorfa. In Masechta D'mai, you're talking about truma which is going to be given to a kohen to eat, and therefore, in order for the kohen to be allowed to eat it, other truma has to be taken off of it, because in and of itself is questionable whether it's valid truma. Here by challah, you burn it. We're talking about the type of challah which you burn. Why is this the type of challah which you're going to burn? It's because not challah you give to a kohen. We're going to see challah and chutzlar to burn, but challah and Eretz Yisrael you give to a kohen. So how do we know that in our Mishnah we're talking about challah you're going to burn? Because it talks about continuously taking off challah until the dough becomes moldy and close to Eino Roy L'Achilas Adam. At that stage, you're going to give it to a Kohen. Come on. You're not going to give it to a Kohen anymore. It must be, this is challah which is intended to be burnt. So it's going to tell challah which is intended to be burnt. So therefore, you don't have to take off challah on this challah. Because why you have to take off, where do you have to take off truma on the truma? Or you want to give it to Kohen, he wants to eat it. So therefore, to safeguard the Kohen, truma has to be taken on the truma, lest the in and of itself was not valid truma, since it was taken off itself on the mind. But here we're talking, here the Kohen is never going to eat the challah. Since the Kohen is never going to eat the challah, it's just going to be burnt. So therefore there's nothing to safeguard the Kohen from, and therefore it's okay to just continuously take off challah without taking off challah on this challah. Okay? Halacha doubt. Is that clear, by the way? Is that clear? Okay?
You said it was also Erev Pesach.
What?
You could also give an answer that it was Erev Pesach.
But our Mishnah doesn't discuss Erev Pesach. Our Mishnah doesn't discuss Erev Pesach. The truth is that I'm not pleased by this raya. I don't think it's but that's how they explain it. What can I tell you? Okay. Yisrael Sheyarisin L'Goyim, B'Suria, a Yisrael who was an oritz, a sharecropper for a goy in Syria. Now this is our old sugya. You know, what's the difference between Israel, Syria, and the rest of the world? But here by Challah there's a twist. Obviously there's going to be a twist because Challah we take off still today in America, right? We don't take off Trumas and Maisus here, but we do take off Challah. So we're going to discuss that. Yisrael Sheyarisim L'Goyim B'Suria. Yisrael was a sharecropper for a goy in Syria. Rabbi Lezer Mechayev in Perusei Ma'aser Shvis. Rabbi Lezer says their crops are chayev in Ma'aser Shvis. Now they don't own the land, but they're sharecroppers, so it looks like their land. So they have to keep Ma'aser and Shemitah. Ram Gamliel Paiter, and Gamliel exempts you. Ram Gamliel Me'ashtei chalos b'Syria. Ram Gamliel says in Syria you got to take off 2 chalos. Now this is something which we're going to see subsequently in the Mishnah. There's a concept of 2 chalos in Chutz La'aretz. One which is burnt and one which goes to the Kohen. So Gamliel said in Syria you also have to take off 2 chalos. Just like Chutz La'aretz. Why in Chutz La'aretz you take off 2? We'll see momentarily. But Syria is like Chutz La'aretz, 2 chalos of every dough. 2 chalos, double. One burnt and one to the Kohen. Rabbi Lezer Omer Challah Achas. Rabbi Lezer says in the Challah you only have to do in Eretz Ma'aser and Shemitah, and they took the Kula Rabbi Lezer you only have to give 1 Challah. So they realized at some point this was not right. The Rash, the Relay says because they realized that we can't pass the Relay because he was from the school of Beis Shammai. They then adopted and Gamliel both matters. So you're exempt from Ma'aser and Shemitah, and you do have to give 2 chalos like Chutz La'aretz across the board. Now, Ram Gamliel summarizes his entire perspective on the matter. There are 3 different lands vis-a-vis challah. Meretz Yisrael v'Kiziv. Kiziv in the Bavli is with a kaf here, it's with a gimel. So from Eretz Yisrael until Kiziv, which is the northernmost boundary of Eretz Yisrael, challah achas. You take 1 challah. Kiziv ad olim avad anor. From Kiziv until the Euphrates, vad Amnon, and until Turei Amnon in Lebanon, which is the outer limit of that which was conquered by those who came up from Egypt. It wasn't conquered by those who came up from Babel, it was conquered by those who came up from Egypt. So it's quasi Eretz Yisrael, right? Because Kedusha Rishona lo kitchulas lo, but some people Kedusha is only quasi Eretz Yisrael. Shtei chalos. You have to give 2 chalos. Achatz lur, 1 for the fire, v'achatz kohen, 1 for a kohen. Now, which is primary? Which one do you think is the primary challah? No. For the one which is burnt. Why is it burnt? Because Chutz La'aretz is what? Chutz La'aretz is what? Tameh. So the challah is inherently tameh. So therefore the primary challah is the one which is burnt. Why do you give 1 to the Kohen, a second challah? Shalot tishtakach toras challah. So people shouldn't forget challah goes to Kohanim. Okay? So that's perfunctory. Therefore, shall ur yesh lo shiur. That which the one which goes to the fire is the one which requires a shiur. The shiur is like any challah taken off. Tomato is 148. Torato, the shiur is 124. Tomato, the shiur is 148. V'shal kohen ein lo shiur. The one which given the kohen has no shiur. Now me'anaharu me'amona v'lifnim. From the river and amona and beyond. Lifnim here means beyond. Shtei chaos, that's mamish chutzlar. It's no shaila about it. There are also two chaos, achasur v'achas kohen. But which one do you think here is primary? This obvious. By now it should be obvious to you. Which one do you think here is primary? No! The one to the kohen. Because here it's pure takana de Rabbana. Where there's a vestige of the Oraisa. So then I say it has to. So then I say the primary one is the primary one is the one which resembles the Oraisa, and since it's in Kul, which is also Chutzlaretz, so therefore it's Tamei. So therefore the primary one is the one which is burnt. However, in Chutzlaretz the whole thing is just the Takana de Rabbana, and therefore really it's the primary one is the one which goes to the Kohen, right? So therefore, shiur ein lo shiur. Shiur ein lo shiur. One which goes to the fire has no shiur because it's because that's the one which is just to remind us that this is chutz la'aretz and it's tamei, and therefore do not get confused with things like Eretz Yisrael. V'shal kohen, the one which goes to kohen, yesh lo shiur. Now, the very basic difference also, I perhaps didn't make this clear. In Olei Mitzrayim, can the Kohen eat the one he... Well, actually, it's not a difference. I take it back. In both cases, the Kohen can eat the one he gets. The Kohen can eat it. But... Yeah. It's Tameh, but it's Tameh, but the coin is always wherever you are. It's Tameh, but in Olei Mitzrayim, we know that the Truma given to him is just as the Chul HaGachal given to him is just as Zecher to Eretz Yisrael, right? So therefore he gets to eat it because we know the primary Challah is burnt, and the Chutzatz we know the concept of Challah is just what altogether is Zecher, and therefore the Kohen can eat it even though there we give him the full shiur, the 148. So in Eretz Yisrael, the Kohen can't eat the Kohen if the Challah, if it's true. Kohen can't eat the Challah if it's true. Tamei, forget it, right? Tamei Challah is not allowed to be in Eretz Yisrael. But in Olei Mitzrayim, which is only quasi Eretz Yisrael, and certainly in Bavel, he can eat the Tamei Challah. Okay? Very good. Says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, Utfu Yom Elcha. Even a Kohen with Tful Yom can eat it, right? The Kohen himself doesn't have to be tar, but he can have to be a Tful Yom. Rabbi Yosef made a Tzarech Tefillah. Rabbi says, no, you don't even have to go to the mikveh to eat it. It's all just a Zecher, right? So the Takon Rabban, you don't have to go to the mikveh. Asura L'Zovin, nonetheless, they made it also for Zav, or Zava, Ulanidos, Ulioldos. Because there, even in your matir, Tomei may see it, but this, these people are gushing. You're going to matir them. It's too much of a joke to allow them to eat the challah. However, since the challah is very, very, it's a takar rabbanan. Nechelisi mazar l'shulchan. It can be eaten with a non-kohen on the same table. But you tell it nitenes l'chol kohen, and it may be given to any kohen, even those who are not normally makbid adinei tuma and tara. Normally, truma, of course, you have to give to a kohen who's makbid adinei tuma and tara. Not this. Elu noisim l'chol kohen. And in general, what if it's given to any kohen, even what is not makbid tuma and tara? Hacharamim, that's land which was dedicated to the kuna. B'chayres, which b'chor marav shach. If they're bringing the korban, it's going to be in the Beis HaMikdash. The Beis HaMikdash, everything is everybody's makbid and tumah and tara. If it gets a mum, so it's eaten outside Beis HaMikdash as chulin. So then don't have to be makbid and tumah and tara. Pasuk itself says, "Hatzamei v'atzari ochlenu katzvi v'kayol." So therefore you can give a b'chor to any kohen. Pidyon aben, of course, there's no kedusha. Pidyon petach hamor, the redemption of a firstborn donkey, is no kedusha. Zroel chaim and keva. The gifts from the slaughtered chulin has no kedusha. Reishis Hagez, the first sharing is no kedusha. Shemet Treifa, Truma, which itself is tummy, which is only intended for burning. You give to a Kohen who's not makbid on Nilchos Tuma, because it's tummy already. The Kachim Mikdash, anything which is going to be the base on Mikdash, you can give to him again because the base on Mikdash, everywhere is makbid to Matara. And Bikurim may be given to a Kohen of this sort as well, because they're also given to the Kohen to eat in the base on Mikdash. Rabbi Yosef Bikurim, Rabbi Yehuda forbids giving Bikurim because he only allows you to give to the Kohen who's not makbid to Matara things which have to do with the avodah. But this doesn't have to do with the avodah. So therefore you can't give it to the Kohen who's not a chaver. Karshine Truma, what about animal fodder of Truma? Can you give it to Kohen who's not makbid on Tuma and Tara? Now why do you have to take off this animal fodder which a person can't eat if he's up in a pinch, he's in a famine or something? But generally it's not eaten. So Truma is only the Rabbana, not the Raisa. So Akiva says you can give it to Kohen who's not makbid on Tuma and Tara. The Kohen Moshe Chachamim forbid you from doing so. Why is that? Because Chachamim say ultimately, since at times it's considered to be food, so therefore it has to be given to a Kohen who's a proper chaver, who's going to safeguard it properly. Let's try and get just to the first two dots in the Gemara. Rav B'Shem Yochanan says, no, we're still on the Chafayim base. Rav B'Shem is starting the Gemara. Rav B'Shem Yochanan says, Lo Chayev Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi Lezer who said that sharecroppers in Syria are Chayev in Challah, in Meiser and Shvius, is only the Chakir Beit Avos is by sharecroppers who have an inherited position. In other words, it goes down in their family from generation to generation. Kagon such as Malin the base Rebbe. I don't know that they were, but they had a concession which was passed down the family. So it looks like it's theirs, even though the land belongs to the guy. But since it goes down and as an inheritance of sharecropper, so it looks like it's the Jews, and therefore they have to take off Trumas and Maisros. Malin is the name. It's a name. It's the name of the people. It's in the name of the family or the name of the city where it was. I don't know which one. But it's a name. Okay? Tani Rav Chatam at Shol says, he says differently. He says, no. Even if it's not an inherited position. Knas Konso Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi Lezer made a knas. Why is it a knas? One of two reasons. The Rash says, either because it's not probably a sharecropper for a goy, or in order that people shouldn't settle in Syria. Since they have to take off Meiser and Shemitah anyway, so they should move to Eretz Yisrael, especially because, Assad is not such a great president, right? What's the difference between the approaches? Oris L'Shah, somebody who's not an Oris is an inherited position, but rather he's temporary. Mandamar Knas, he holds that it's a Knas, he's Chayev. Mandamar B'Chakir Batiyavos, he who said it's going in it has to be a specifically inherited position, so therefore part of your exam because it's not an inherited position, and so the nafkamina is by a oris only for that generation, only for a temporary amount of time. That would be the Machlokes Shin Rabbi Avo or Rabbi Chalafta ben Shol, whether such an oris is chayiv in Meiser and Shemitah and Surya or not. We'll stop here for this evening.